The final battle of One Piece is not what you think. For years we speculated about ultimate scraps, Luffy versus Emu, Luffy versus Blackbeard, maybe in an ultimate pie eating competition? But what if I told you that the ultimate clash isn't any of those? In fact, the real final battle could just be between the Straw Hats and the Cross Guild. Yeah, you heard that right. Luffy and his crew squaring off against Buggy, Crocodile, and Mihawk. Cross Guild isn't just a goofy circus, though I guess it is led by a clown and operates in a circus. Okay, but it isn't an unserious circus. It's a culmination of everything we've built up to. The culmination of early One Piece. Plus, there's just a lot more swag in the crew than Blackbeard's. I mean, even Fat Elvita has more aura than Doc Q. Buggy has openly stated his goal is to become the Pirate King. And let's be real, he's Oda's favorite fella. This is like the literature equivalent of an answer sheet. Oda's a big fan of callbacks, and we've already nodded to Volume 1 and post-time skip. My theory, we'll call back to Volume 2 with the Cross Guild, and one of the final volumes will be a callback to Volume 3. Doesn't Mr. Monkey doesn't he look a little kingly right here? Now, I understand that there's a crew discrepancy between the 10 Straw Hats and the 9, I'm just going to call them the Jesters, the 9 Jesters. Though trust me, Perona is joining the crew. In fact, she was originally supposed to be in it, and was even going to be on the poster. Then, maybe there will be even more, some other late joiners down the line, possibly having been revealed to us already. Stay tuned for that. So now that the numbers are even, let's start breaking down the battles. Chopper versus Richie. This one's pretty simple. You've got the two pets squaring off, and despite Richie looking a little defanged, so is Chopper. Hashtag make Chopper a character again. So I still think this would be a fun little banger. We could get a story arc where Chopper has to tap into his monstrous rage, a throwback to Annie's lobby. Nothing crazy, but I think it would be satisfying. Before we get to the next one, look at that subscribe button. Isn't it looking a little rotund? Quick, slap it. Thanks. Usopp versus Moji. Moji is the animal tamer who owns Richie, and his main weapon is a whip. I could see him snatching Usopp's slingshot, leading to a more hands-on fight. Perfect for Usopp to finally step up and fight on the front lines. Then I know there's some of you out there saying, but these guys are bums. Bro, check out these hands from the East Blue. They'd melt the weakling trio. Like, this is actually crazy boxing, bro. I'm also imagining a crossover moment where Moji hypnotizes Chopper's monster point, forcing Usopp to snap him out of it. A perfect mix of heroism and comedy, leading to a combined Usopp-Chopper attack just like back in Alabasta to take down two of the Cross Guild's bummier members. Brook versus Kabahi. Now this one actually has solid potential. Kabahi, the unicycle rider from Orange Town, is known for his sliding attacks and fire breathing, which would make for a perfect contrast against Brook's sliding and ice attacks. Well, this fight doesn't have a narrative weight. Has any Brook fight? I'm picturing one of those classic duels where both men dash past each other. Brook sheaths his blade, then boom, Kabahi collapses in a puff of smoke. Swag.
If you're going to show me an illusion, could you make sure it has some panties in it next time?
Nami versus Mr. 3. This matchup is actually kind of genius. Normally we expect a girl versus girl fight, but Mr. 3 and Nami have some history. Remember when Nami almost became a wax statue? This could be peak Oda humor. Imagine them both being terrified to fight, only eventually to swallow their fear to support their captain's dreams. Mr. 3 is one of the few tacticians in Buggy's crew, while Nami is one of the few brains behind the Straw Hats. Whether it's a battle of wit or a sudden brawl, either way, it's bound to just be nice to see Nami get some comeuppance. Oh, and I'm not really sure what Elvita is going to do during all this, so maybe Oda will have time for a sexy fight after all. Franky versus Perona. I know this sounds weird, but hear me out. Ghosts versus cyborgs just feels so Oda. They actually interacted back in Thriller Bark.
I totally suck. Everything I did this week totally sucks.
Maybe Franky has installed a new feature called Franky Usopp mentality, which would be a Kino bit. Though, do you know what's better than ghosts versus cyborgs? Zombies versus cyborgs. Franky versus Gecko Moria. I just really want this fight, because how sick would it be for the General Franky to fight Gecko Moria's 1,000 Shadows form? Robin versus Doflamingo. Heavenly Demon versus a demonly demon. I think Doflamingo is pretty clearly set up to join the Cross Guild. A prison break where he and the person next on this list join up with Buggy and his jesters. This fight makes sense to me because I just want to hear the conversation that these two would have. Possibly the two pirates with the most knowledge of world history. Maybe I just want to see a debate on their interpretation of the D, to be honest. Also, we could get this cool interaction where they're both manipulating each other, yelling, "Why are you hitting yourself? Why are you hitting yourself?" Wouldn't that just be Premiere, buddy? Jinbei versus Weevil. Now, Weevil was introduced back in Dressrosa, and this guy he's got to be doing something eventually, right? Then I think this would be the perfect matchup for that. You've got some narrative weight with Jinbei fighting the man who's currently tarnishing the legacy of his late idol. And this would be a great moment to reveal whether that mustache is real or not, if he's got the Whitebeard Y chromosome. Also just got two hefty fellas swanging some big meaty hooks. Would be pretty sick. Sanji versus Crocodile. Now this one is the weirder fight of the bunch to me. I mean, yes, it makes sense, but I could see why it feels somewhat lacking when compared to Zoro vs Mihawk and Luffy vs Buggy, until you dive a little more deeply into it. And it's not like Sanji's dream is directly accomplished with a win here. Now, for the actual fight. I think we could get some real rage from Croco Boy aimed toward the man that he believes to have ruined his Baroque work operation, making it into the broke not working operation, Mr. Prince. I think there'd be a cool interaction where Crocodile brings that up and Sanji responds explaining that he dropped his princehood. Oda could also give Sanji some real motivation with the power of love, fighting against the man that ruined a crewmate's country. I'd be down for Sanji to get some comeuppance. We could also get a cool interaction between the two because they're both the sneak around and infiltrate types of people. Oh, and I just realized this. We could finally get confirmation of the Crocodile trans theory. If Sanji starts beating on Crocodile, that more or less essentially confirms that he's not a girl, I think. Though if Sanji doesn't have it in him, then we also get an answer to that theory. However, having Sanji bow out in what would essentially be his final bout would probably crash the Twitter servers, so I'm just gonna hope they don't do that. Also, I could see Mr. One joining and maybe Sanji just speed blitz him to show that, leg is stronger than steel. Zoro versus Mihawk. La creme de la creme. I don't see it possible to overstate the importance of this matchup. I mean, this has been built up since chapter 51? We are now 2 whole digits removed from that possibility. Dude, there has been more time built in this matchup than time I have and presumably you have been on this earth. I think this matchup is in fact one of the reasons as the Cross Guild vs Straw Hat is going to be the final battle. To me, a lot of the tension would be taken out of the assumed Zoro vs Shiryu fight if we had already seen him take out Mihawk. And I don't really see a satisfactory story where we do get a crew battle and Zoro vs Mihawk just doesn't happen. So this has got to be the last major finale besides Zoro and Sanji sparring at the end, or maybe Zoro trains Tashigi. Anyway, yeah, Zoro vs Mihawk. That's about all I have to say. It's literally perfect. I really think the symbolism behind Mihawk's Yoru being a cross and Zoro going Ashra is just so clean. Then my dream opening for the fight is that Mihawk whips out the butter knife at first, and Zoro chuckles and smacks it away, replying with the line, "How about the cannon?" That would just be so cold, dude. Luffy versus Buggy. Finally, we got Captain versus Captain, the determiner for who will be the king of the pirates. The true first fight we had seen in the series. Now, I know the first question is, but Clinch, Buggy is a bum, Luffy washes him. Bro, let me tell you, are we really still thinking Buggy doesn't have a fruit like Luffy's? There are just way too many parallels between Luffy and Buggy. They both got their fruits in a similar way, both funny powers. Oda at one point even had Buggy's powers for Luffy. The fruit is going to be the Hito no Mi model forest god, whatever that name will be. Maybe I'll make a theory on it, but I think it's pretty clear to me, at least the dragon is the rain god and Teach the earth god. Also, I low-key think that Buggy's got some Rock's will in there. You just wait till we get that reveal of Rock's having blue hair, buddy. Now, for the final fight. It seems like the most Oda thing ever to have the final fight of the series not be a serious one, but to be a fun one, with Buggy and Luffy just giggling while bouncing and punching about, likely ending the fight with a Gum Gum Bazooka, just like their first encounter. Oh, I forgot to add this when I was originally writing the video, but I could definitely see Vivi versus Alvida. Assuming she does join the crew before the end, I think that would be a fun fight. So yeah, that's my theory. The final battle, being the Straw Hats versus the Cross Guild, would be a perfect climax. Let me know what you think. Am I onto something or am I onto nothing here? That's the video. Bye.
No!